Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new and fun episode of the High Five Guys with your boys Todd and Chris. We are here in I don't know, it's a gloomy day for me. I don't know what it's like for you, Todd. It's also
It's all good. It's all good. I met up with Kyle. We had a good time. We had a couple drinks and we did a little rehearsal. So
okay.
we're
Nice.
getting ready for our show on Saturday. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm feeling good. I
All
mean,
right.
yeah. It's like you can feel fall falling.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
definitely getting cooler, but yeah, we're all good.
Absolutely. And yeah, here it's fall crisp day, like 62, 63. So not as warm as it's been the last couple of days. We haven't had rain in 2 weeks, it felt like, or it feels like. So we could use the rain. Our tomatoes are struggling. We've got a few peppers. They're like little mini peppers. We have this makeshift garden outside, and it's actually great to see some of the vegetables actually grow and some of the fruits grow. But the peppers we have are probably like no more than an inch and a half
Wait a
tall.
minute. I grew ghost peppers here. Hold on. Let me grab them real quick. I'll show you. Let me show you my ghost peppers.
Let's see. This is what you get with our pod. So real time interaction. So all right, look at those peppers.
There they are.
Yeah.
I put them in with some vinegar so they preserve well, but that is like 6 or 7 like
ghost
top
peppers.
notch ghost peppers. Yeah, I'll make some hot sauce with them.
Wonderful. I actually picture ghost peppers to be black or like very dark in nature, but that's probably not.
They're very red. Yeah.
Nice. So with that, and with this episode, what's going to be fun today for everybody, we are going to have a guest join us. So our guest is an amazing person and an amazing athlete, and you'll get to hear more about that and his experience at Ironman Japan. So for those of you who have thought about trying to do any races, Mike's going to be your guy to talk to. So we'll get him here in a hot second. With that, Todd, what's been new, what's exciting, what's happened, since the last time that we got together?
Oh man. Yeah. So, well, we missed last week, but cookout I thought was pretty awesome. And the summer cookout, a lot of people came out. That was really fun. We did like a live music thing.
Yeah.
You came down. You're aware of the cookout?
I was in the area. I might have made an appearance.
The hilarious thing that happened later on the night, around, I don't know, 9 o'clock or something, a random dog just showed up. He just arrived at the cookout, and everybody, we looked around, we're like, oh, who came to the event, like brought the dog along?
Exactly. Someone invited him.
And we looked all around and we're like, did you bring a dog? Do you have a dog? You have a dog? And everyone was like, no, we don't have a dog. And we found out that this dog just showed up at our cookout, like heard the music, felt the vibes, smelled the food that was going on.
It's really good food at the party, at the cookout,
and just showed up, couldn't resist it. So awesome. Sammy the dog came to our cookout. That was awesome. We couldn't figure out who he was for a long time, and then eventually we found this like big what do you call it? Like phone number on his.
Yeah, like dog tag kind of thing.
He had a dog tag, but there was another collar that was even like a bigger embroidered numbers. So we were trying to call the number on the dog tag, and like nobody was picking up. But then we found the other number, and I started calling. And I realized like a caller ID came up on my phone. So I found out like I knew this person, and I found out it was a neighbor from across the way. I live in like a cul-de-sac. So it was neighbor T across the cul-de-sac. It was his dog Sammy. So we eventually, like 4 of us went over. It was like me, Stacy, Tracy, Sean, and we brought.
What was it? A white dog?
It was, yeah.
Because funny enough, it actually reminds me of our guest who's on. They have a dog. Kind of reminds me of Milo a little bit, but it was like a white spot. Okay. I saw this dog like just looking at me at the at the end of the driveways, like, why are you here?
Yeah.
Why are you parking your car so close? So I looked at him, I waved, and then I came over.
Yeah. So I don't know. Apparently our party was strong enough that the neighborhood dogs just couldn't resist. They had to get in. They had to come be part of our party. So
yeah, it was a great time.
As a badge of honor.
Great time. I appreciate the invite. Really good food. Again, Todd knows how to throw an awesome party when it comes to food, when it comes to just ambiance, and yeah, with the whole music scene, there was a whole karaoke open mic type vibe outside, which is great. And I know a lot of people participated. I know I had to duck out early, but sounded like it was a good time.
Yeah, we had fun. So I think that was pretty much the main. Oh, and I ridiculously sprained my ankle. I honestly think I kind of like broke something, like
so
hairline fracture or something.
Still swollen.
Crazy. Like injury on my ankle. I was walking around the yard the day of that cookout, and I don't know. I mean, it's my own yard, and I stepped into some spot on the grass and like completely rolled my ankle. Like your ankle goes over like that, and you put all your weight on it.
Yeah.
It was like that.
This is a good roll, a good ankle roll.
It swelled up like crazy. Where I could not, like, I couldn't walk at all the next 2 days after. It was weird too, because you saw me at the event. I mean, it happened that night. It happened the day of that event. I was somewhat okay. I mean, maybe adrenaline carried me or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, later on that night, I couldn't walk at all. And the next day, forget it. Like I was shot. My ankle was super swollen up.
I say that's like the worst thing when you wake up the next day, whether you're like hungover, right? You had too much of a good time. In your case, it was an ankle. It's like, wait a second, why is this hurt now?
Yeah. Yeah, I probably had like a couple beers that like just blunted the pain, but yeah. So I'm getting over it. I mean, I don't know. It's not going to be great for a while. It's probably a bad sprain, I think now.
So you've been laying low for a little bit.
Taking it easy. Hopefully I'm better by next week or something, but it's unfortunate because it came up at a bad time because I ended up missing. I was supposed to go to a Great Gatsby party, and I got the costume for it and everything.
Yeah.
20s costume. Last weekend, I missed that because I couldn't walk. And this coming weekend, I was supposed to be doing a 30-mile bike ride. In
New York City?
Twin Lights, in Jersey Shore.
Yeah, okay.
Stacey and I was supposed to do that. She's still doing it. I'm going to go and like cheer her on. But I had to miss it. I'm gonna miss that as well. So it's pretty unfortunate from that standpoint. I'm missing 2 big events because of it. But I don't know. Well, I'll be okay. I'll make it. I
say you'll heal up and hopefully the good vibes from the event this weekend too that you're getting ready for. That'll be fun. That'll be a good time. So awesome. All right, good update. And
how
again,
about you? How about you? What have you been up to?
Gearing up for this ultra marathon run. I keep on saying ultra marathon. It's a 6-hour race. If I don't do 26 or over 26 miles, I guess it's not an ultra marathon, but that's the goal. So since we last talked, I had my longest trail run ever. I ran 23 miles and absolutely everybody listening, watching, it wasn't fun. I think I'm realizing as this training program is getting on that I'm not much of a trail runner in terms of it. It's not exciting to me. Like I definitely appreciate.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's not.
You prefer just like a flat pavement kind of run.
I'm a road guy. I think I might be a road guy, but what turned that frown upside down was actually just a couple days ago over the weekend. I had 2 trail runs to do. One was 16 miles. The other one was 10. And I felt really good on both of them. I crushed it, had a great pace on the 16 miler. And even on the 10 miler, it was about a minute faster than I need to for the actual race. So we'll see. I know my updates have been a lot on this, trail run and this ultra marathon, but I've never done it before. Joe's going to be there for a piece of it to watch and cheer me on. I know a couple other friends said they might come out. I'm excited for it. So it's not this weekend. It's next weekend on Saturday. So getting ready for that.
Cool.
And then, yeah, this past weekend as well, so sprinkled in with the trail runs, we've had some great weather too, close to 75, 80 degrees up here. We took out one of the shelter dogs, Priscilla, who's she's been great. She's been struggling to find a home and, anxiety just being in the shelter for that long. We took her to the state park, and her and Duck got to go play in the water and just like walk around. So did like, a couple hours in the trails, and then also spent more time on the same trail walking around. It was wonderful though. I think they both had a really great time. So getting to spend some time with some dogs is always nice. And, seeing Duck have fun is great, and seeing Priscilla have fun. And that state park, Todd, Todd loves that Saratoga State Park. All sorts of people out and about. There was a wedding going on in this one venue, sort of cabana, if you will. They had a farm aid was going on. So a whole event where John Cougar Mellencamp, Dave Matthews was there, Willie Nelson. They had a whole day, geared towards raising money for farms. And then just 2 days ago, Post Malone was here, and people were excited for that.
The level of talent you guys get there. I mean, you went to T-Pain, right?
Yeah. T-Pain and Pitbull. It was great.
The level phenomenal of concert that comes to that little park is unbelievable. That's awesome.
Yeah, that was a great concert. T-Pain and Pitbull really do a good job out there. So yeah, those are the updates here. It's time to get into our special guest, who again introduced him a little bit early, not really, but talked about the topic. We're talking about Ironman. We're talking about racing. We're talking about athletics, and bringing here to you. Actually, I don't know why I cannot turn his mic on. There it is. Okay, he's there. Can you see him? I can see him.
I see him.
Mike, are you there?
I can see him too. Hey guys,
I hear him. I even hear
thanks for having me on the podcast. It's great to be a high five guy for a day.
All right, no, we welcome you. Welcome to the podcast. There it is. So Mike Maloney, he is an Ironman, three-time Ironman champion, if you will. I'll say completer, an athlete, a dad, a Rocket Rabbit team club leader. He is like a man of many hats. But Mike, why don't you just give a quick introduction, of yourself to the people listening?
Sure thing. Hi everyone, Mike Maloney, longtime friend of Chris Rusk from previous work experience, aspiring triathlete. I would like to just amend the record to say average Ironman. Average. Let's not go with champion. Those people are crazy. But just completed Ironman Japan. Was my third full distance Ironman. Leading up to those races, I've completed 10 70.3s or half Ironmans, usually all over the Northeast, as well as a multitude of other fun athletic fitness challenges with Chris and others, whether it's Ragnar relay races or Tough Mudders or local 5Ks, anything I can sink my teeth into. So great to be here. Thanks for having me.
And so people who aren't familiar, the distances on Ironman, because I know it's absolutely outrageous. Let's hear the breakdown.
Sure. So an Ironman full distance triathlon is a 2.4 mile swim, a 112 mile bike ride, and then a 26.2 mile marathon at the end.
Yeah,
I actually didn't know it was that long. That's outrageous. What's the hardest part of that? The swim?
I do have to say it varies by race. And so for each venue, they list the difficulty of the legs, right? So if you have a rough, cold ocean swim, that's a lot different than a very calm, serene lake swim, or even better, a strong current river swim where you can just kind of, float on your back and just kind of go along with the current. But same thing, like if you're biking up and down, the mountains of Placid versus, a flatter course like Western Massachusetts, like that's Yeah.
Yeah, it's different, but like, do you have it? I mean, again, the distance is crazy, So just to summarize, that full Ironman is a total distance of 140.6 miles covered, and sometimes they do relays on the full Ironmans as well.
No,
Or is
just
it
the halves.
Okay, so in the full Ironmans, Mike, along with other athletes, they are on their own. There is no relay. You don't even really you can't get team support, right? I
No,
think on
no
the
outside
Ironmans.
race support. Everything has to be provided by the organization in the race, and they do a great job of it. There's great nutrition, great hydration planned out at intervals predetermined along the course.
And yeah, so but it's Mike himself, and all his thoughts and everything for those 140.6 miles, with some people cheering. You can't wear headphones. I know a lot of people on races or runs, oh, I need music. I need that. Ironman bans those.
Yep. So it's just, it's you alone with your thoughts, which is what I love about it. You really get to know yourself during these races as you kind of test yourself. One of the most appealing attributes of triathlon, but specifically long distance triathlon like Ironman, for me is the mentality of just that. It's very you versus you. If you see the poster behind me, it's the Ironman logo and it says you versus you, because you really are in your mind and you really are present with yourself for the 14 hours that you're out there, and so
it's those numbers you're throwing out there. The fact that you didn't even just do it once, you've done it 3 times already. It's crazy. But how did you get into racing and triathlons? Was there a particular event? Was there a friend, family member that said, kind of spurred you into it?
Yeah. When I was younger, I hated running. I hated it. I had a lot of energy, and my mom was like, "Get outside, go run around," right? But I always hated running, and I had friends ask me, I had previous coaches from like soccer teams and stuff say, "Hey, like, why don't you get into running? Why don't you try cross country? Why don't you try like track out?" So like soccer, I was the goalie. Track, I did high jump and long jump. I really didn't enjoy it at all. But our mutual friend Chris, Jim Oliver, or James J. Oliver, also from Beechnut Nutrition. When I was at PepsiCo with him before we came to Beechnut, begged and pleaded with me to do a corporate challenge, basically 5K with him. So it's a big event in the middle of Albany, which is the capital of New York State. Draws a lot of corporate interest. Many companies register teams to compete, to take part in this 3.5 mile run. He did it and had a great time and begged me, like, please, you're my friend, like, come do this with me. So I did it with him, and my heart was pounding and I was gulping water at the end of mile 1. And it just kind of something clicked for me of just, I like the appeal, not of the competitive environment, but just pushing myself to do something that I wasn't sure I'd be able to do. And we just kind of kept going in that direction. So one thing kind of leads to the next, and it becomes a cycle. It becomes not saying an addiction, but a desired hobby, if you will, of, all right, well, can I do a 5K? Can I do a 10K? My friend said they're doing a Ragnar relay. What is that? Can I do that? And then you just kind of pursue to the next thing.
Absolutely. And before getting into, let's say, the Ironman series of races, was there like a race that was really the most memorable for you, or something that stood out?
Yeah, I think, I'll mention the Ragnar relay series here. For those who don't know, it's a 200-ish mile relay race where you and 11 friends break up into like 2 vans, and you take turns driving along this course and handing off as people get out of the van to take their turns running in a race. And so, Chris, we did this together multiple times, not only as part of a work team, but, even just joining random teams. And it wasn't just about the athletic challenge of it. It was also about the community. And I think that's what makes it a a more memorable race or racing series other than Ironman is getting introduced into the community of everyone saying like, hey, we're all here together doing this, and it's about achieving a goal, not necessarily like beating each other in a competition.
Yeah.
And that one it goes straight through the night and everything, right? It's one of those.
Yeah.
Just people are running at 3 a.m.
all night long.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I think what's interesting too is Mike and I have both done that. They have a road Ragnar and then they have a trail one. There are pros and cons to both. People like one, the other. The road one is just that, like, I mean, you're on the road at 1 a.m. You headlamp. You may see someone in the distance. It could be someone. It could be a bear. You're not sure. Same thing on the trail.
And it has been both. It has been both in the past.
Oh no.
So yeah, Todd, not too far from you, we've done a few of the Ragnar Wawayandas. So that Wawayanda State Park.
Yeah,
and
I know where that is. Yeah.
Sure enough, I mean, we've seen a bear, on site and on the trail running around. So it's been fun. It's been exciting, and to Mike's point, I think the camaraderie is what really sells those types of events. Because sometimes you go to a 5K and you're kind of just, maybe you're there with your family member, your close friend, something. I don't know, like doing this as a team type environment. There's kind of that sense of like, I'm with the team. It's certainly not alone. There's 7, 8 of us together. But then there's also everybody around you, and people typically will cheer for you, say, hey, good job, go get them, keep crushing it, whether they pass you or you pass them. And that's what makes the Ragnars, I think, extra special as well.
It's also a good tie-in with the jacket you're wearing, Chris.
Absolutely. I mean, I may have done that on purpose, but I might not have. But then, Mike, so something said, I love the Ragnar series. I want to challenge myself, right? What actually drove you to say, hey, I want to do a triathlon? And maybe have you done some triathlons before the Ironman?
So I went, I was participating in the Penn State online MBA program about 5 years ago. And I was sharing with a student in one of our work groups, we're working on a project. Hey, just finished, a Ragnar, really proud of it. Pretty excited. Like I felt like my times were good. And they were like, that is crazy. You did. And as we were talking, I realized that they didn't know what I was talking about, and they assumed I was talking about something I was not talking about. The conversation ended with, oh, I thought you said you did an Ironman. You couldn't do an Ironman. To which I was within 5 minutes on the internet going, what is an Ironman? Right. And that's how that started. That's how I learned about Ironman, is someone telling me you could never do an Ironman. That's what started that. And also, like I mentioned, citing the first answer, I don't love running. And so when I found out that you can do like long distance, long course things and not run the whole time, that was appealing to me. Like, well, let's do some other stuff. Let's switch it up. Let's be mediocre at 3 things instead of like not great at 1.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, save running to the end. I could at least bike for a little bit. I could, enjoy that maybe.
Yeah.
Before
absolutely.
the running. Oh, that's okay. And, so for, Ironman Japan, this may also, talk about your other Ironman experiences. What was your like training routine like? Because to do, you mentioned 14 hours. So it took you about 14 hours to do Ironman Japan?
It did. It took me, I think my time coming across the clock was like 14 and a half. I started a little bit later than the front wave of people going in the water. So I think it's a little bit less than that. But here's an important distinction in the triathlon community. So at Ironman events, I would say that less than 5 participants, will use Ironman Japan as an example. There were 1,500 participants in Ironman Japan. Mm-hmm. About 5% or less is a competitive community. Pros, people that train very seriously all day long, people that get very competitive in their mindset and how they train, how they handle their nutrition. It's important to distinguish that, because those are the people who are going to get times for a full Ironman that are, 8 hours. That's what a pro time is like 8 hours. For me, as you mentioned, Chris, there's an important work-life balance, training life balance as a father, as a husband, as an employee, right? As a homeowner. All of a sudden, the puzzle pieces of your time get divided into different segments. And so I don't prioritize Ironman training as seriously as someone who wanted to do really well would do. For me, it's a goal about achieving the distance and completing the goal. And so the training plan that I would mention to you would not be the training plan if someone wanted to really be serious about smashing an Ironman and committing significant hours, significant investment. I would imagine I'm on the lighter end of training plans and preparedness for Ironman. But hopefully that distinction's, I described that clearly. There's a spectrum of training that you can do, and I'm on the lighter end. That doesn't mean that people can't do much better with the heavier end of training, but I've found kind of my minimum requirements, if you will, to completing a full distance. So it's a 24-week plan. It's 8 microcycles of 3 weeks.
So half a year.
It's 8 roughly 3-week microcycles, and what I do is I do a load, and then unload progression. So I slowly just kind of like ladder up, ramp up my my fitness, and it's the same with my new clients who are doing a half Ironman for the first time. Same training plan, different utilization of the disciplines, different times, different paces, things like that. But ultimately, 24 weeks, 8 microcycles, load, unload.
Yeah, to think about a half a year of time, and to your point, there's people like this is their full-time gig, so they're training you can say 24/7. You've got so many other pieces that you're juggling, like being a dad, like work, like home, and then you're like, oh, I guess I should train. Is that kind of like your mindset when it comes to that, or you're able to divide a little bit of time and say, hey, I got this 2-hour window, typically first thing in the morning or late at night, that I'm gonna get the miles in?
Yeah, definitely. It's for me, it's a personal challenge, and I'll be the first to admit that I will gladly deprioritize training when my son says, hey, can you help me with a project for school? It's due tomorrow, right? It's like, well, looks like I'm not sitting on the bicycle trainer for 2 hours tonight. I'm gonna help my son. I did do a ton of training for my first full in Alaska because it's the daunting new goal that you've never done, and oh my gosh, I don't even know if I can achieve a full. So that stress drives a lot of training, right? Like I trained more during that time than any other time. But then after reflecting on it, I realized there has to be a healthier balance. I should be able to ramp down the training a little bit and still be able to achieve the goal. Maybe not in all the times that I wanted, but I should be able to maintain the fitness level where my family isn't complaining that they never see me. I saw a funny joke, a sign that says, if you're still married, you didn't train hard enough. And I'm like, they're absolutely spot on. So, yeah.
Now the different locations you mentioned, that's interesting to me. Is that how it is? Like these triathlons or Ironmans, they're all around the world. That's just how it is. Is like it's pretty spread out like that, or like let's just say whatever. Like in the U.S., how many Ironmans are there? Let's say in the U.S. itself, or you're just that whole thing. How does that work?
So Ironman is a brand, right? It is a standard distance. So if you say full Ironman, people in the community generally know what you're referring to, right? They know the distance, but it's also a brand of race. There are different brands of triathlons, different distances globally, but Ironman is a global brand. So you can register for an Ironman in Switzerland or in Hawaii or in South Africa, and you know what distances you're signing up for, which is nice. It's a standardization of the experience of what to expect, which is what makes it appealing to me. They are global. I personally want to see more of the world, and I thought that pairing a travel goal with a race goal would be a wise use of my time and money. And so my first one was in Alaska. And so we went for the week, obviously the race being in the middle, consuming a lot of time, but on either side of the race, you can explore. We took a helicopter up into the glaciers. We saw, we walked on crazy like ice caverns, and it was remarkable, right? For the second one, I did Ironman Cozumel, which is an island, off of Mexico. Totally different environment, also serene, also beautiful. You see, while you're swimming in crystal clear waters, you're seeing sea turtles and stingrays, and it's just visually beautiful, but in a different way than Alaska. And so for this one, I wanted to really change it up, immerse myself in a different cultural environment, in a new people where I don't speak the language, and kind of jump in over my head from a cultural perspective.
And that's awesome. And I think to add to what your question, Todd, they have, Ironmans. I don't know what the closest one is to, let's say, the New York, metro area in terms of
Jones
full
Beach
Ironman. Jones Beach.
The closest full
Lake
would
Placid,
be either
maybe.
Jones Beach. Okay.
Placid would be the full. Maryland would be another full, and then for halves it would be Jones Beach, like New York City. They also have the Happy Valley in Pennsylvania, which is a great half.
Yeah.
But it's just a handful of them, like, happening, let's say, each year. Like they're not like all over the place.
Yeah, they're everywhere. If you go on the Ironman website, you'll see 13 pages of calendar events all over in different countries. I think there's over 50 in the United States. There's got to be close to 50. So.
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
I think from what I've seen too, you have almost, I don't want to say every weekend or maybe every other weekend, there's either that half Ironman distance or a full Ironman going on somewhere in the US, and then also maybe 1, 2, 3 spots in the world as well. And Mike was talking earlier about like being very committed to Ironman, and like, this is what I want to do. They have qualifying slots, so like kind of like a championship, the World Series, the Super Bowl. They have an Ironman, World Championship, if you will, that happens once a year, and the best men and women in the world, get invited based on their finishing times, and places, and it's just, again, the best of the best. I think it's incredible to know, someone who's done 140.6 miles just in one go. Mike mentioned earlier about the time. Some of the professionals are a good 5 hours faster than what Mike has done. And when you boil down like the speed or time, that means on the men's side, a marathon is 2:30. They're doing a swim in 40 minutes, maybe 45 minutes to cover that 2.4 miles. They're doing the bike ride, the 112 miles of bike. They're probably averaging 25 miles an hour, so just over 4 hours.
More,
God.
more than 25. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my God. Okay, yeah.
And then after that, they're doing a 2.5 hour marathon. It took me 350, and I felt like I was done. Right, I was done after New York City. It's crazy. So the best of the best, they do have a world championship. But on that, Mike, you've got, obviously you got a swim component, a bike component, a running component. Do you have any favorite pieces of equipment that like you really like, and just like can't wait to put on or get on or use when you're doing your races or training?
Yeah. So I absolutely love my bicycle. It can turn into a thing. The triathlon culture, it definitely isn't a cheap sport by any means, right? It's kind of laughable how expensive triathlon can get if you let it. And it's also funny because we'll be the first people in my grouping, right? We'll be the first to admit like we're not pros and we're 5 hours behind the pros, but we still want the pro bicycle, right? Like we still want the fancy bicycle with the disc wheels with carbon and everything. And so, yeah, I did build a bike 2 years ago that I've been using since Alaska, and it's just held up really well. I love it. It's well maintained. And it hasn't left me stranded, knock on laminate particle board. It hasn't left me. My worst fear is like breaking something 70 miles away from where you need to end up. So yeah, It's the bicycle. It's
rode,
a Diamondback Andean.
Okay, I rode Chris's road bike for the first time like a few months ago, and I was just like, wow, because I grew up doing BMX and everything, so I've been like a bike guy for a long time, but I never rode like a high end carbon fiber road bike like that, and it was pretty different, pretty interesting. Those things are they're machines.
They can move and they're light. That's what also helps a lot of pro cyclists will talk about weight savings and what they can do. And then so Todd, you rode my bike and I love it. Mike's bike is on another level.
Oh, really? Oh,
I mean,
if you Google Diamondback Andean, Andean, you'll see it's like Batman's bicycle. That's pretty awesome.
I mean, it's unreal how slim it is, and
yeah, it must be absurdly light.
Yes, Mike, and I'll also say, like, Mike, he has on the Ironman. Typically, he'll have a disc wheel, so the entire back wheel, you don't really see any spokes, and it's supposed to be aerodynamic and less wind resistance and all that stuff. But I know, Mike, you've had some also fun experiences in races with a disc wheel where maybe it's a little too windy.
Yeah, I mean, my bicycle itself is a giant carbon fiber fairing, essentially. And then when you add a disc wheel to it, you become a wind target for sure. So if you do like a highway crossing with high winds, it'll blow your bicycle, all over the place.
Yeah. So because it's solid instead of just whatever spokes where the wind will go through it instead. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, there's no through. It just hits you from the side, and all of a sudden, your weight is leaned up over the aero bars, and then you're wobbling as the wind hits you, and you're trying to do 30 miles an hour, 40 miles an hour down a hill.
Wow. I will say it was like a 20-mile ride altogether, but 4 miles of it we were completely exposed on the West Side Highway in Manhattan. And it was a ridiculously windy day. We went on the way out, like there was no wind, but on the way back, it just felt like we were fighting wind the entire time. It felt like it was just straight in our face. I don't know. It was bad. Maybe 5 meters per second. It was a lot of wind. It was so much worse. It was flat surface, but it's so much worse than like going up hills and stuff. Like, have you dealt with that in the middle of one of your races where the wind was just in your face and it just made it like 10 times worse?
So when I did Cozumel, I picked it because I really struggled in Alaska with the mountain bike course. And I thought, all right, well, next time I'm going to pick an Ironman that's flat, because if it's flat, that means I can just go fast. I can put my disc wheel on and I can just, I'm good at going flat. Let's just do that. What I didn't realize is when you're on an island and you're going around the island, 3 loops around the entire island in Cozumel, there's going to be wind, very windy on an island, which is amazing one way around the island. But as you come around the other side of the island, it's blasting you in the face and pushing you backwards. So you'll be averaging 24 miles an hour with the wind. And then as you come around, you're like, why am I so slow? Why does this hurt so bad? And then you look at your speed, you're doing 12 miles an hour because the wind is just a strong headwind the entire time. So yes, wind definitely plays more of a factor than I estimated originally. And I learned that the hard way.
Yeah. You take that with you, right? You put it in your pocket. You're like, okay, this is what to expect if I pick an island course, even if it's flat. And you bucket that. So for Japan itself, you said it was your third full Ironman. When it comes to Japan being, hours and hours ahead, right? Time zone change. Was there anything different that you felt like you had to prepare for Japan versus the other two?
That's a great question. I found a picture of the bicycle for Todd. I don't know if he was able to, but for those at home or people, that's the Diamondback Andean.
Nice. Yeah. Oh, wow.
To answer your question,
it's absurd how fast Mike goes past me on that bike.
Really?
By the way.
Just even like both of you just coasting downhill and like not even pedaling.
Yeah, that's actually that's
his
even worse. Yeah,
that's where I catch people. Yeah, the people who are really in shape, the people who are in amazing shape and actually did all the training you're supposed to do, they'll pass me going uphill. But with that thing going downhill, I don't even have to pedal. I just tuck in. And
you're not even pedaling. You just
oh yeah,
you just wait. That's cool.
Oh yeah.
How long have you had that thing?
I built it about 2.5 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, and it's been great. They don't make them anymore, so I'm gonna hold on to it for a while. And Chris, to answer your question about Japan, full Ironmans for me are kind of like a spontaneous, exciting goal that I just set spontaneously. Yeah. So New Year's rolls around. You're having drinks with your family, talking about what goals you want to, what you want to do. Somebody says, "Hey, Mike, would you do another Ironman?" You're like, "Absolutely not." And they're like, "Oh, because I saw this cool one in Australia and blah, blah, blah." So then you like take out your phone and you're like looking at it and you're like, "Oh man, they're doing one in Japan for like the first time this year." And then, you have another whiskey and then you're like, oh, they're selling out. They're already at tier 4. There's only like 20 spots left. And then next thing you know, you click register and you wake up to a confirmation email in your inbox that says you registered for Ironman Japan. You don't know anything about where it is. You don't know what time zone it's in. You don't know what the bike course looks like or the swim. You don't know what the temperature is going to be and where you're going to stay in a hotel or any of that. But yeah, that's kind of how I approach stuff. So Chris, it is a 13-hour time delay. I was excited to learn in Japan.
Okay.
And so you can take your sleep plan and how contingent your training is and your wellness on your sleep and just throw it out the window. That's what I learned. I should have gone way earlier. I should have gone much earlier. I should have tried to acclimate. I should have had a plan for jet lag. I've gone to Europe a handful of times and, I can eat a 5-hour time difference, no problem. Like I can just make it through the day. It's not that big of a deal. So I just kind of assumed it would be the same. Like, oh, you just get used to it. You don't get used to it. At least I did. My brother and I struggled. We were falling asleep at lunchtime.
That's tough. And how many days did you get there before the race?
4 days before the race, 4 full days.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the formula, they say you can adjust like 1 hour per day, something like that is like the standard adjustment. So it's way more than 4 hours of.
Yeah, they might be right. I can tell you verifiably so that I adjusted 0 hours in 4 days.
Oh,
nice.
Man.
That's tough. And, so leading up to the race, there's a lot of check in and get your bike ready, all that stuff. Was there any other ways that you managed the nerves or anything like that? Or you said, listen, I'm here, I trained as much as I could. Let's just give it a go, and see what this is going to turn out like.
Yeah. Basically. I mean, you just get in a mindset where it's like the goal, maybe not for those who do these all the time or train excessively well. But for me, it's a daunting challenge each time. It's like, oh man, did I do the minimum training required to be able to get me through 14 hours of relentless physical activity tomorrow? Sleep went out the window. Nutrition went out the window, in Japan because everything was foreign to me. We were in Hokkaido, which is the larger island. It's not near Tokyo. It's in a very non-touristy area. And so we would just see things and you would ask yourself, I wonder what that'll do to my stomach. And then you would just eat it. And you're like, thank you. And you'd eat what you can get. So nutrition plan and sleep plan were out the window. As far as nerves, I would say it's extremely common, not just in Ironman, but in anything. I'm sure you're going to have nerves, the night before your ultra marathon of oh man, I did all this training. Can I really do this? You get a little bit in your mind and you have to kind of quiet those anxieties down. The nerves are very common, very routine.
Yeah.
You probably had them before for your marathon, right?
It was like, I tried going to sleep. It gets 7 hours of sleep, maybe. I ended up getting like 5.5, and waking up before the alarm, just because you're so nervous. So yeah, I mean, I can just imagine, in your shoes too, just what it's like. And for those, when you're doing an Ironman, the New York City Marathon also has a like kind of an early start to by the time you get there, you're waking up at 3:34 in the morning, to get ready for your race. So it's just, you have to hopefully do some of that or practice, or again, in Mike's case, just throw it all out the window and just see what happens.
I will tell you, like I've done 2 of these before at this point, right? But I'm laying in bed 2 a.m. and I look out the window. Wind is smashing rain against the window. And there's a thunder and lightning storm outside. And you can hear the wind just gusting, just like beating against the hotel. And I got up, I walked to the window, just saw, I don't know if you've seen like wind catch rain to the effect that if you can see for, extended distance, you can see the sheets of rain like going down the road.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But I just stood there and I like put my face in my hands. I'm like, I don't think I'm doing this tomorrow. Like I don't know. I don't even know if they're going to have this race. Like what do I do with this? Right. And so to your point, I wake up, I eat 3:30 in the morning. I put my temporary number tattoos on that you have to put on in Japan. Right. I'm like, get ready to go, put my tri-suit on. And I'm like, all right, well, it's rainy. So I'll put on a light, like waterproof soft shell. I've got 2 miles to walk to the athlete shuttle. That's going to bring me to the transition area. I put on some sweatpants over because it was like cold. And I walk out of the hotel and I just instantly get soaked. And the wind blows so hard that if you're like wearing a hooded sweatshirt, right? I don't know if I can. I don't know. I'll do it on camera live right here. So I have like my hood on. The wind is blowing so hard. It's just like covering your face and you're just getting like pelted from the side with wind. And in my mind at that time, I've never been so close to quitting something before I started than that moment. I'm like, wow. I was like, forget this. Like, forget this. And we got very lucky because it took about an hour to walk to the shuttle, load the shuttle full of athletes, drive everyone to T1. You get into T1, you put your stuff down, you get your bicycle ready, you pump your tires up for the last time, you load it full of your nutrition for the day, you get your wetsuit on. Then the sky kind of opened up a little bit and you could see rays of sun, no more lightning, no more crazy wind, no more thunder. Now sun was starting to come out and we're like, okay, there's hope, right? Like we're good. We got lucky. The storm from last night is over. So the announcer says in English and in Japanese, thankfully also in English, of yes, we are swimming today. The storm subsided. We're going to give you an extra 15 minutes this morning to go out and practice swim to get used to the ocean conditions. And so me and 1,499 other people, we walk into the ocean up to our waist in wetsuits, and we just let 4-foot waves just hit us just repeatedly. And we all just look at each other like, is this for real? So the lifeguards who are spread out through the course to ensure safety, they had all these paddle boards and none of them could stand on the paddle boards. So they went and got jet skis. So now there's full size jet skis, like jumping these waves, trying to like keep people in this like practice area. And I just remember I've never felt closer as a community than the dread that I had. And I look and I saw that same dread in everyone's eyes. Doesn't matter what country you're from. Doesn't matter what language you speak. We all said the F word visually to each other and then looked at the ocean, and you know, we were all there for each other. So
was it cold too? Like what time of year was this?
This was 2 weeks ago, and it is relatively the same temperature as like the Northeast here in the States. So it was about 70 degrees. Water was very warm due to a warm.
The water's okay. All right, at least the water's warm. All
so
right. 70,
not main temperatures of the water by any means.
Okay.
So yeah, I think that's the piece. You didn't ask the question, Chris, but I guess I'll answer it anyway. That was the discipline I was most proud of this time, was being able to push through all those waves, then get out into the ocean, then work with the current back around. Then you come out of the water 1.2 miles later. They have you walk across a timing chip to signal you've done half. And then they're like, go get back in. Just mentally, that's really like defeating, right? You're like, oh God, I did the swim. And you come out and you like feel good.
Do another lap.
And they're like, all right, go get your ass back in there. So yeah. That's the piece I'm most proud of. That was a personal best time for me, and it was the ocean, and the oceans are the harder swims in my opinion. So
absolutely. I mean, you're fighting a lot of variables versus, I'll call it, some variables in, reservoirs or, rivers, whatever the case may be. Like, I feel like the ocean is just like anything. You could have sharks. I mean, it just, things, it could go nuts. Now, in terms of the overall Japan experience, so you talked a little bit about the swim there. What were you feeling when you finished the swim? How did you feel after that? You have the transition to the bike. Describe, how the bike went, and then what you were feeling on the run.
Yeah, it's interesting because the actual race day is quite different from your training. You're trying to stick to a predetermined nutrition plan and power output, because it's easy to get caught up in the moment, in the adrenaline of it all. You come out of a 2.4 mile swim. First, you're out of it and you're like dizzy and wobbly a little bit. And then you feel like Superman. You're like, I just swam 2.5 miles in that ocean and those waves are enormous. Like, I'm the god of triathlon, right? Even though I'm like 400th in line, like way back, and so many people are already on their bikes and gone. You feel amazing. You're like, wow, right? Then there's a potential that you get on your bike super amped up and you just go. You bike as hard as you can bike, and the problem is 4 hours into that, you've then depleted all your energy, and your RPMs drop and your heart rate starts to shoot through the roof. So I've made a concerted effort this time to really scale back in the beginning and say, okay, I feel good. I'm just going to stick with what I know I'm doing. I'm not trying to impress anybody but me and my wife, to just keep her on her toes with what I can do. And I'm looking to finish this thing. And so if I'm looking to finish it, I want to finish it healthy. I want to finish it consistent. And I just want to do like a good power output on the bike. And I did. It felt great. Awesome. So after the swim, positive energy. Everybody starts to, freak out a little bit once you hit mile 60 on the bike and you're like, oh, I should be done with a half Ironman by now. And I've still got, 50 miles to go. But yeah, overall really positive after the swim.
Awesome. And then, so the bike, you felt good on the bike. You said, it sounds like you were consistent. You want to just kind of power through it, consistent power. Any like crazy things that you saw on the bike in terms of, accidents or animals, or was it relatively tame?
So where we were at a section of highway that wasn't really aggressively used in Japan, is my impression, based on the road quality. It wasn't the most well-maintained pavement ever. But okay. It was a neat course. It basically snaked back and forth like 4 loops of almost 30 miles in Japan. And you go under and through 2 different mountains. So there's 2 stretches of tunnel that are just fantastic. And so you go like flying through tunnels, and that creates a visual and an acoustic environment that provides you some change in a world of no, you're not allowed to have music or headphones. Right. So that was pretty cool. Also, we passed like different farms in Japan. I didn't realize like how many farms were in northern Japan, but I saw like giant oxen. I saw a guy making his ostrich dance. There was like an ostrich that was like doing this, and there was a guy, for those who can't see who are listening to the podcast, I would say it's swaying left and right, side to side, almost like a dad dance move. And then there was a man standing in front of that ostrich, like waving his arms one at a time, like raising his left and raising his right as he lowered the other arm, and the ostrich was like mirroring him. So yeah, that was the most exciting animal.
Did he have it like on a leash, or this ostrich just like knew to hang with him?
I don't know. It was like open farm. There were like fences, but it didn't look like it was like that fence quality that's like 2 sticks with like another stick tied to it. That ostrich could have blown that fence if he wanted to blow the fence. But
yeah. Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah. And all right. And then you got the run. So just a marathon to finish. How did that go? How'd you feel? What was it like to cross the finish line?
So in Cozumel, I blew my legs out on the bike with the stress of the headwind.
Oh,
a lack of training on the cycling discipline, I would say, for my Cozumel race. So this time I was more conscious of the power output on the bike, and I had more energy left in my legs. A strange thing did happen in the swim that I've never had happen before. After the second loop, about 50 feet offshore, the ground becomes reachable with your feet. People can stand.
Yep.
I stood up coming out of the water, and I've never had anything like this happen before, and I'm not exaggerating the pain. I couldn't believe it. But as soon as both feet touched the sand, have you ever woken up, either of you, in the middle of the night screaming with a Charlie horse, like when your muscle, it feels like just snapped in on itself and is like 1,000,000% tight?
Yeah.
So that happened to both of my calves at exactly the same time.
Oh,
and
wow.
I don't know why.
I was gonna say calves. Yeah, I've had it worse than the calves. Yeah. Oh.
So my legs locked up, and I was screaming, and I was like, "Oh my God! Like what is happening? I've never had it happen. I've swam for many hours. I've swam in the ocean. Never had this happen."
Yeah.
And so I'm screaming, and I can't stand up because my legs like tightened almost into like the fetal position. So now I'm going underwater, screaming and like breathing in water, and now I'm choking on water and screaming, and my legs feel like there's 2 knives in the back of them. So I start yelling help, but in Japan no one knows that I'm yelling help. I'm just yelling. And so I stopped yelling help, and I just tried to like catch my breath, and I start like doing a big wide breaststroke while my feet just kind of like are curled up under me. And I roll over onto my back because I didn't want to get pulled out of the race. I realized if someone comes to help you because you're yelling and making a scene, you're DNF'd. If they pull you out of the water, you're done. So I'm like, okay, I don't want that to happen. So I rolled on my back, and I just started like doing the backstroke, pointing my toes, and then pulling them back. It's trying to stretch that calf out. And ultimately, I was able to kind of like hobble to my bike, sit down, stretch it out a little bit, and I went on my way. And in the bicycle, you don't really use your calves that much. You're using your quad, right? And so I didn't really need that muscle for the bike. The reason I tell that long story is because when it was time to do the run, all of a sudden those muscles reminded me what had happened in the morning. and I sat down off the bike and I tried to stretch them out a little bit, but there was still this like residual pain, like something had happened earlier.
Yeah.
So needless to say, didn't get my best run, but I did much better than my run in Cozumel. My legs felt better. I felt like I had planned better. I had trained better this time. My time isn't good by any measure of a marathon, but it's good for me, and I finished. So
absolutely, I think you're selling yourself short too. I think you're the fact that you completed an Ironman, speaks volumes. Honestly, not only to like you as an athlete and person, the discipline behind it. It's fantastic. I have not done it. Todd, have you done? Yeah. So we have not done it. And I think
remotely close. Yeah.
I think many of our listeners and watchers also have not done a full Ironman. So, but no, what ends up happening too is we do end up being competitive with ourselves, right? It could be racing, it could be cooking, it could be how fast can I cut the grass outside, like silly stuff. And so, yeah, you always want to try and do your best. But I think you even said earlier too about finishing healthy and wanting to just, complete the race, right? You don't want a DNF. And I think you went to Japan and, you conquered the course. You overcame a number of different obstacles. And I think that kind of leads to like a good sort of summary of Japan is like, are there certain takeaways that you have from the race, like that you'll take on to another race or event?
I think it's split for me into two different buckets, right? Because the race it's an entire day, and in fact, because of the time difference here, my wife said she went to bed after I started the race, and when she woke up the next day, I was still going, and that kind of like cemented it for my family here, like what I was actually doing. It's kind of it's a unique thing with the time experience that they had never seen before. Is like, oh yeah, the entire time I was sleeping, Mike was crying by himself on his bicycle. Like, but for as far as like Japan key takeaways, right? Like one whole day is the race, and yes, there's some prep, but it gets divided into two buckets: exploring a new place, learning about a new culture, speaking with people who live different, critical experiences than you have. That's a very rewarding intrinsic experience for me. And at the same time, there's, hey, I'm maintaining a healthy lifestyle. I'm trying to be a good role model for my kids, balancing the amount of junk food that I eat and, counteracting that with exercise. And the takeaways from Japan are just that. It's a combination of those two things. Like, yes, I can still achieve my goals. I did well. I'm getting the positive feedback from myself, looking at and evaluating like performance and making notes for next time. And I got to be somewhere new and learn something new. Through various personal experiences, I've been reminded that we're not here forever. And so you have so much time, and you have to make the best use of it that you can. And for me, making the best use of my time is allocating some of this time each year to seeing a new part of the world, learning something new about a new culture and people, and pushing myself and my limits. So
I think that's very well said. And I think the culture piece, being able to travel and experience a whole different area of the world, different people, different cuisine, there's so much more than what we just see in front of us and what's around us every day. And so to be able to do a race, but also have that cultural experience as well. And kind of, like you said earlier, like knock two things off your, list and check them off. I mean, it's just awesome. It's absolutely awesome. And like, to summarize that, and like your whole Ironman experience, your triathlete experience, is there something like, what can you share with someone who might be interested in racing or wanting to do a triathlon for the first time? What's one positive thing that you can share with them that will help them get over that hurdle of signing up for that race?
Well, number one, you can do it. You can do it. While I was racing in Japan, I met a gentleman named Jim. He ran next to me for a little while, and he motivated my weariness out of me. Jim had one leg, and his other leg was a running blade. Whoa. And Jim was running with me at an 8:30 pace when we were both extremely tired. And being next to him motivated and inspired me and took away all my excuses. When I was cycling, I got passed by a tandem bicycle. And the reason it was a tandem bicycle is because one of the competitors was blind. And he swam blind, tethered to his partner. Wow.
Yeah.
And then he biked blind as his partner steered, and they both pedaled. And then he ran blind, also tethered. So chances are, if you're a average person listening to the High Five Guys podcast, you can do it, because I've seen some remarkable stories, and it's never too late to start. One of the competitors in Japan was 82 years old, and she finished. So
yeah, that's wonderful. That's absolutely wonderful. That's incredible. No, and you both, like Mike, you inspire me a lot on the athletic side. Todd, for me, it's like trying different things. I feel like you've done a really good job at that. I know personally, a triathlon is one of my goals, one of my life goals. And Mike, he wasn't a great swimmer, at all, just a few years ago. And now you're doing full Ironmans. And so I know there's hope. And I need to spend more time in the water and get comfortable. And absolutely, triathlon is on my list. Ironman, certainly a half Ironman at least, is on my list of things to do.
it's not an understatement to say that, Chris, if you learn how to swim, you will be a immediate competitor in the Ironman space, given your cycling prowess and your speed on the road. You'd start out, like, as soon as you got out of the water, you would be ahead of so many people as far as like average performance in Ironman. I think you could absolutely do it. I would encourage you to keep working with the swimming. And anybody out there who doesn't really know where to start, feel free to reach out to me. I am now a licensed certified beginner coach from Ironman University, and I do take on new clients with this ambitious goal without the knowledge, based on all the experiences that I've had working with coaches, being new, being back of the pack, and you can find me on rocketrabbits.com.
I love it. That's a great outro from our Ironman segment. That's awesome, Mike. And no, for everybody tuning in too, you know, with Mike as our guest, we want to end the show with our high fives of the week and absolutely have Mike participate. And Mike, do you want to go first? And give
sure.
a high five of the week. So let it rip.
My high five of the week goes to, it's two high fives. It goes to Jesse and Brian, who work at Fast Splits in Needham, which is the bike shop that prepared my baby for the race in Japan. They took their time. They did things that they didn't need to do that I don't think I paid them for. They charged me for to make sure that I had the extra care and readiness to make sure I had everything I needed on race day. They went above and beyond. And did a fantastic job, and I would definitely refer them to friends and family. Who are your high fives?
Awesome. Oh, that's great. Todd, why don't you go?
Okay, yeah, I have a fairly obscure one, but I found this like kind of singing woman on Instagram. So the account is Shan Officially, so like SHAN Officially.
Okay.
It's just amazing stuff. Like she plays guitar and it'll be like a reggae type thing. She has another friend who sings with her and she'll do like these medleys. It's just amazing. I mean, you know, you're not hearing it or anything. So it's, you know, it's hard to express like how good it is. But yeah, I found it over the last couple of days and I've just been like religiously watching a lot of her stuff. It's just awesome. Like she does her own little take on stuff and just really good vocals. So
awesome.
I've been
that's incredible.
Shan Officially.
Go check it out. Instagram.
Yeah, very good.
Right?
Yep.
Okay.
Really good.
Okay. All right. Yeah. For me, I'm going to give a shout out actually to Priscilla. So this dog that, we took in every Thursday. Duck would go to daycare, so we'd have empty space in the house and try and give a shelter dog, like some home real life experience. So Priscilla, we crushed it at the park over the weekend. Like we needed to take her out, get her out of the shelter for a bit, and we took her to the Saratoga State Park both Saturday and Sunday. And I have to admit, what made me smile, and Joe and I talked about this too, is how much more athletic she is than Duck. Like Duck,
really?
Yeah, you know, he's a great dog. You know, he can't harm anybody. He'll just sit there as you get robbed and whatever the case. He's so like tranquil. But when it comes to like going for long walks, Duck will meander. He will sniff everything and just not like go with the flow of traffic. Priscilla, on the other hand, is just like, let's go. Like, let's go explore. I'm ready. I want to pounce. I want to go here. I want to go there. So, you know, during the whole 5-mile trail that we did at Saratoga the one day, like she had all this energy and she was panting a little bit, but Duck, you could see, was extremely like tired. He's like, oh man, when are we done? I thought we were done an hour ago. So, no, she made that whole trip memorable and just, you know, the weekend was great. So, you know, I know, shout out to Priscilla. You know, unfortunately, she probably won't be around much longer, being at the shelter. So I know it's like a little bit of a sad, I don't want to say that, but, you know, she brought a lot of good energy to my life, to Joe's life, and, you know, to Duck, and especially over this weekend, she crushed it. Duck needs to get some of her energy. That's so, Yeah, shout out Priscilla. This episode has been kind of twisty and turny, kind of like an Ironman, race. We had some really good highs. We talked about your experience in Japan, your whole triathlete experience and exposure, Mike. And I know you are a wealth of knowledge when it comes to racing, when it comes to being an athlete, fueling, nutrition. And certainly, really, Todd and I appreciate you joining us for this episode and being able to share your experience, as an athlete, and kind of what to look out for, what's exciting about it, and why others should get involved. And I think you did a really nice job today. So congrats.
Hey, thanks, Chris. Listen, again, thanks for having me on the High Five Guys podcast. I will tell you, I have a question and then I have a secret. I will give you my secret to success. If you want the secret to finishing a full Ironman, it's right before you start. It's ritualistic. You buy you have a 16-ounce Red Bull. I go with blueberry, but you could go with any you can go with any flavor. Yep. You drink half, and then you throw the other half away. And I know what you're thinking. They make 8-ounce Red Bulls. No. You have to do 16-ounce and drink half and waste the other 8 ounces. That's the secret. And my question for Todd is, who fed Sammy at the barbecue, and what did Sammy eat before you sent him home in shame?
Oh, I don't think we fed him much. We gave him some water, and Nastia, who is my buddy Kyle's daughter, took her for constant walks. She was walking a mile probably during the time we had her. But yeah, we brought her back eventually.
But no hot dogs. No hot dogs for Sammy.
I don't believe so. I don't think Sammy was showing the super hunger pangs, but we gave him some water. We thought he was out in the wilderness or something. We found out he came from across the street later. So.
and Todd, should this week's podcast mark the number of days until Chris has 2 dogs?
Oh, wow. I think he will have multiple dogs probably before we get to 30 podcasts.
There you go.
That's my prediction. Yep.
I know. I will say
before I do an Ironman, you'll have a second dog.
Okay. That's a good bet. We could take that to the sports books. Fair enough. We'll keep you both updated. We'll keep the world updated on the dog count at the Rusk household. But for everybody tuning in and watching, thanks so much for tuning in and watching and joining us. You have so many other podcasts, so many other things you could do, but you decided to join us, and we appreciate you. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and if you really like videos, you could listen to us and watch us on YouTube. It's great. Feel free, comment, subscribe, share to your friends. But this has been an awesome time. And again, Mike, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate you. Thanks for making this podcast awesome. Mike. And Todd, thanks for always just being, the best pod mate ever.